Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke, and I'm so glad you're here. If you're tuning in for the first time to this platform, welcome. Many of you have been with me for decades and decades, and how many times should I say decades and decades? After 40-some years, I've been through the realm with many people, their kids' kids, and their kids' kids. So I've had a lot of people on here, but thank you for joining us on this new platform. We're trying to bring you the best information, the best honest information about getting healthy, being healthy, and staying healthy, and doing it with the right tools, but also the right information. It's really, really important. Today, my guest is Lance Graves. Welcome, Lance.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Jeff. Appreciate it.
I'm so glad to have him here today. You know, if you're just tuning in, although I'm bringing you the best of the best in our industry, in the natural products industry, I also decided when I did this platform that I wanted athletes and I wanted people in the know, but a lot of the athletes, of course, my preference is going to be the horse industry. So I have a lot of really great friends. So we are definitely going to be doing that today. Let me give you a little bit of background about Lance, and we're going to get started. Lance and his staff, commonly known as LG and Company, offer training and private lessons at the Graves Ranch located in Hartshorne, Oklahoma, as well as producing clinics nationwide. Lance promotes consistent, quiet, positive reinforcement training techniques that allow almost any individual to ride the horses he has trained after they leave his program. Lance trains approximately 25 barrel horse prospects annually, focused much of his time on teaching students, both privately and at clinics. He has taught in Canada, Italy, Brazil, Mexico, and around the globe. Lance's training videos have been sold to China, Australia, Italy, France, Uruguay, New Zealand, Czech Republic, and his first video sold over 1,000 copies in the first 30 days. His world champion credentials with a passion for teaching makes Lance unique in the world of barrel racing. So, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, I appreciate the invitation, and I've been looking forward to speaking with you. I'm sorry we had a little difficult connecting, but I'm sure happy to be here today.
No, it'll be wonderful. So, some questions that I think a lot of people want to know. You know, we understand our athletes and our professional athletes, and also when they're trainers as well. If you had to put yourself in a category, or would it be a dual category of being a competitor or a trainer educator? Is there a preference, or are you equally rooted in both of them?
So I think that's a pretty good question, but there are very few of us, I think, in any sports industry that are actually the trainer, the coach, and the competitor.
Mhm.
So I mean, I can count probably on both my hands how many people there are in our barrel race industry that actually do that. So
Mhm.
I'm proud of the fact that I can transition between the two or the three, wear those three hats. But I really enjoy competing, but I also like it's cyclical here, my farm and my training. So I'll go through the process of training the young horses here at the house, and then the first stages of competition when I'm traveling, and then the end result, which is all the fun stuff that people get to see on TV and in the magazines and that kind of stuff. But I don't think that there are a lot of people, a lot of competitors that we see each year annually at the national finals and whatever that just compete all the time. I don't really think that I would be that guy. I think that there's something that's good for the soul that's renewing to be able to go back and organically go through the process, over and over. And that way, we continue to learn and continue to get a little bit better. And hopefully each year my horsemanship improves a little bit, and I hope it will until, I pass.
Well, let me ask you a question. You know, some people start when they're teenagers, some people start when they're older. We were having a little conversation about that before. You started very young in the industry.
So my father moved us to this ranch when I was 3. I started riding when I was 3, and at that time barrel futurities weren't a thing. I was 7 years old the first time I entered my first futurity, which is crazy young. I mean, we barely let our kids start riding by the time they're 7, right? So, but by the time I was 8, I was a seasoned professional in the industry. But times were different then. All of my friends were in their 30s and 40s, and I was 8. So, but that's how I grew up. My father saw a little bit of talent in there, a little bit of gift, and like most stage fathers, exploited that.
I get it. We see that in every sport,
For sure.
so,
For sure.
and entertainers as well. We see the,
For sure.
the parents behind the professional. So that's okay.
For
Did
sure.
you love it from the beginning?
So I love animals, and I love horses in particular, but I am particularly grounded and connected to animals for whatever reason. God had that in plan for me. I've always had a special ability to be able to communicate with them on a different kind of level, and so the answer is yes. I love anything with an animal.
I love it. Me too. I'm the same way because we've got horses and lots of dogs, and I would spend my time sometimes, I think, with animals more than people.
For sure,
but I do enjoy it.
Yeah, there's definitely a purity to a relationship between a man and an animal.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the industry in general. It seems like with futurity, there's part of the industry that is open to women professionals. There are other parts of the industry that are open to both women and men. It's kind of a different kind of a blend there. How do you feel that everybody is received within the category?
It's been interesting watching to reference your intro, decades and decades and decades that I've seen the industry change and grow and develop, and it's very different than it was when I first started. And over the last few years, there's been an explosion of, first there was an explosion into the divisional races, which was trying to get all the mom and pops and the grandparents all involved. And then, it was all about the futurity horses. And now there's different breeders groups. So stallions that wouldn't have had a chance to have any, their horses go and compete much against the top end horses. They've created a new category for them. And, it's very different, but overall it's pretty inclusive. There's pretty much a place for everyone at any kind of level to go to. A lot of times I think it's interesting. Sometimes people will say, or they'll see some of my videos, internationally or whatever, and they'll be like, men barrel race. And it shocks me at this point, because used to it was an anomaly when I did it and I showed up and I was the only guy there. And now it's so, it's so prevalent and especially among the trainers and whatever. So it changed as far as that perception, to the point that now I'm surprised if somebody else is surprised, if that makes any sense,
Mm-hmm.
So, but for sure a sport that anybody could truly do it if you have the heart for it and you have the ability to, and the access. It's super inclusive as far as a sport that goes on every level.
How is it being on the road, having kids, having a family, balancing work and training? I mean, that's a major juggling act.
So I'll share with you openly. You seem like an open guy, and so I'm just going to tell you, okay? So I had children later in life. I have two daughters, Macy and Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
When I had them and when they were little, I was still traveling and coming home and training and being a dad when I was here and competing. With the breakdown of my marriage and the custody battle that ensued, that I won and got my daughters, that traveling stopped. So, as we grow up, we can make a decision in our lives as adults that we can continue chasing what I call public attention and fame and whatever, or we can be a dad. And so you can't do it all like that. You're going to raise your girl. So what I did is I backed off the traveling and the competition schedule, and I continued training here at the home. And I told my owners I'll be training, staying near the home, and we can send these horses out to different jockeys and riders or whatever when we're done. But other than that, and some people were good with it and some weren't able to handle that, which is fine too. But what it left me with was a great relationship with two amazing young women. And now we're getting back into my older daughter is a freshman at Oklahoma State University now, and my younger daughter is in 7th grade, but she travels with me a lot too. So we've been getting to travel a little bit more and whatever. But the truth is, you just have to make a choice. And
Yes.
my choice was to put the energy that I put into the horses that I was training into my children. And I, you can, I always figured that I would never look back and say, boy, I wish I would have gone to that barrel race. Where I would look back and go, boy, if I'd have just spent more time with my kids. And I'm not about having any regrets. I will never regret the time and the effort that I put into my daughters.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's a lot,
Well,
and
sometimes that
I think it's amazing.
yeah, sometimes that's a little bit deep, and it's a lot. It's challenging for people to hear, especially because, to be honest, our industry is, it caters to the narcissistic personality, people who like to to people who like to hear their name called, and people who like to get a pat on the back, and people who like to get a lot of praise. It's just the nature of the sport. So, and you can be that kind of person, be a competitor, but you can't be that person and be a daddy.
I
So,
got it.
I've grown more in the last night. My older daughter's 19, and I've grown more in the last 19 years than I grew the 35 years before that. So,
What kind of shape are you in, and how hard is it to stay in shape?
so I've always been an athlete, obviously, since I was
Hmm.
young. And then when I played ball, I played high school basketball, and I coach high school basketball and I coach my kids. So, like, I've never really, except for during my injuries and downtime, like, it's never really stopped. So, I think that I think that if I had just went to start being an athlete now, it would be challenging.
Yeah.
But it's been relatively easy for me to maintain that because I've done it since I was little. And the exercises are the same, and it's just, I work the same things over and over. So I think I'm in pretty good shape. I weigh about 150 pounds, 148 pounds. Um, I still wear the same clothes I wore in high school. So I haven't changed much that way, but my life hasn't changed either.
I love it. What's it like being on the road when you were on the road? I mean, would you consider it to be exciting, stressful, a little bit of both?
So I'm going to say yeah, I mean, sure, there's excitement. When you have the number one horse in the nation in the trailer, it's a lot of fun to go and compete on that horse and watch that horse, be a part of that horse's success and to experience that. But there's a lot to scheduling and a lot to trying to match where the animal is in their career with where their owner wants the animal to be. And it's really a challenge to try to keep an animal on some disconnected third party's schedule based on their entertainment level. Does that make sense? Like, it's really
Mm-hmm.
hard if I have a horse that needs a couple of weeks off and a break so he can keep his brain fresh and be ready to go back and be fresh and sharp and relaxed. And I have an owner that's saying, no, you're going to here and here and here, and you have to be here at these places. So that that's used to stress me out a lot. I'm pretty fortunate I don't have to deal with that a lot now because at this late in my career, that kind of let me, pick and choose and make a schedule. But when you as the trainer are on someone else's schedule, it's tough.
And thank you for that, because I know people wonder. When I interview, I try to ask the questions that I know people are asking me.
Sure.
And they're wondering, because we have these wonderful people that we love. We have athletes and we have entertainers, and we put them on this pedestal because we want to know everything about them. But we don't want to just know the stuff that you read in the magazines and stuff. We want to get to know them a little intimately behind the curtain, if you will.
I think that's fair.
And I think it's wonderful because it's a really nice sharing, and it lets us really get to know people a little bit better. Next question. I know that you've done a lot of horses. I'm not sure if you sold horses or trained horses in Brazil, but somebody had asked me, they said they had people that they know in Brazil and they've seen horses that you've either sold or trained that run really fast. And he said and they're running full patterns, and like, what are they doing over there that's different than we're doing here? Is it the rider? Is it the horses? Is it the climate? Is it the dirt? What is it?
That's a good. I get that question a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
so I've been going to Brazil for about 20 years.
Okay.
I exported for about 10 years in a row. I had, one of the either top two or three mares in the United States every year in the fraternities. And all of those mares exported outside the United States and went to Brazil. The economy was big there. Their money was, it's flipped in reverse here, but it used to be twice what our dollar was here. And so it was a really good time to be exporting, these really fast horses that we won with here. But it's very, very different to go to a competition in Brazil as opposed to a competition here. They run the same size pattern at every arena all the time, and they take their groundwork as a matter of pride. And so, for example, if you're over there and you're going to compete, they'll say they will advertise, "We are the arena where the current world record was set," or "We had the arena world record 3 times set here at our facility with our tractor drivers and our dirt." So it's a complete matter of pride and distinction to be able to say, the fastest horse in the entire world ran here. Also, it's a very heavily in male dominated sport there. Very, very few females compete there. The very first time I went to Brazil, I only saw 2 females. They ran 600 head of the barrel race, and there were only 2 women there. So it was the same with youth too. But the youth has gotten where they've gotten a lot more kids now that are running, competing. That was the biggest thing I saw different last year. I go as captain of Team USA to the World Cup international competitions, and so this last year that we went, there was probably 150 in the youth, which was the biggest I'd ever seen. And they have a femenino class, a women's class, and so they've done a lot to pump that up and build that up. That was the biggest distinction when I first went there, was just all men, no girls. So that's certainly been interesting, but it's a heavily dominated, male dominated sport. They run on the exact same pattern every arena they go to. They work tirelessly to get the ground as absolutely perfect and as fast as they can get it, and they absolutely run faster there than we do here.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I mean, she'll be happy to hear that. So I told her I would ask you that. I think it's a good question, because I mean, I've had other people, I've heard them ask it before, and I mean, this is perfect platform. Thank you.
I'm going to give you one more. I think this is important that we share this with our viewers too. Okay, so to give you a little different mindset behind the Brazilian barrel racer mentality. All right, when we, as American barrel racers, when we show up to a barrel race, we wait for the results to be over and we hope that we won the barrel race, right? Whether it is a 16.5 or a 17.9, you know what I mean? That's the goal, is to win the barrel race. Okay, when you go there, the goal is to run the fastest 16-second you can run. They're not trying to outrun their friends. They're not trying to outrun their counterparts. There's no competition between the people like there is between the person and the clock. So when you take 1,000 people at one event and the only thing that they are focused on, they have a group think tank of trying to be a fastest 16, and they don't care what somebody ran in the first 2 go rounds because they're still going after the same goal. When you have 1,000 people a day chasing the one same goal to be the fastest 16 you can, you're going to get a bunch of fast 16s. And in American barrel racers, we don't think that way, because we're just trying to win the barrel race. And if we win the barrel race and by 1,000th, whether it's a second off or 2 seconds off the world record, nobody cares. They're just trying to win and outrun your friends. But it's not like that there. They're only focused on the clock and the goal and the time. And it makes for an extremely different event than the American barrel racing culture. Does that make sense?
Wow. Oh, it does.
Okay.
And I'm taken back by the 1,000 riders in a day. I've announced 600,
Yeah.
and I thought that was something.
About to
My
kill you.
jaws were sore. I couldn't talk for 3 days.
That's right.
But I did a little over 600, and I thought that was like, but 1,000. Oh my goodness.
Right. It's crazy.
Oh my, it's amazing. Kind of wonder where I want to go with this now. I was talking with someone the other day, and they have a preference about riding a male horse,
Okay.
where her husband likes riding mares,
Okay.
and they both compete. But they're very strict and solid in their affirmation and their dedication to that. Do you have a preference?
Sure I do. And I think that if you have people that tell you that they have a preference like that, probably the honest truth is they've tapped into their their skill. If you have someone who says to you directly, "Listen, I prefer to ride a mare," then they're probably more aware of their own horsemanship, their own personality, their own temperament, and what works best for them. So when people say, "Oh, I don't care," I always think, it's the people who do care that know the difference, that understand what they get out. As far as training a horse, I don't really have a I just train the horse that I'm sitting on, if that makes sense, right? As a competitor, I've won 51 world and reserve world championship titles in my 40-year career. And I'm going to tell you that 80% of them are on mares, females.
Okay.
So,
all right.
but it's my temperament to be calm and reassuring and a daddy type rider, as opposed to an aggressive, you know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
a gelding or a male horse would have would be a little more you know more conducive to that kind of rider, where the fillies are a little more the fragile, nervous type horses are the horses that I personally, because of my temperament and personality, get along with better.
So the relationship is very much based on personality and relationship between you and the horse. There is a relationship there. And
100%. So you can imagine if I'm sitting here at 145 pounds and I am going to ask a 1,200-pound animal to do what I want it to do at the fastest speed it can possibly go. If I don't have a relationship with that animal, I'm not going to make it go anywhere it doesn't want to go. So I better have something in our relationship between me and the animal to convince that animal to do what I want at a high rate of speed. That takes a lot of coming together and a lot of art of the deal to get them to agree to your program.
how about health of the horse? I think it's important. Are you someone who uses or utilizes things like chiropractic or equine massage? Do you do special nutrients? Are the diets specific and individual?
I try to treat every individual as an individual.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything that I would tell you, oh no, I would never do that, or I'm a pretty open-minded kind of guy. I've seen a lot of different and interesting procedures, food products, supplement products, injectable things. I've seen a lot of things happen in a lot of countries over the last 30 years. So I would say that I'm very open to listen and to learn and to look what's going on, but I try to stay as natural as I possibly can. I'll give you an example of that. My the little roan mare that I won on in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. She's 5 years old, and she's never been injected. She's never had a joint injection. She's never been injected, and I don't feed her. She only eats alfalfa hay out of a slow feed hay bag. Now, how many people are going to come on here and tell you that their $500,000 mare just eats hay out of a hay bag?
None.
You know what I'm saying? She does.
Yes.
She doesn't get grain. She doesn't get supplements. She doesn't get. She hasn't had any depot shots. She hasn't had any of that stuff. She's just like God built her. So, and it's gone her way so far, and there's been no need to change anything, and I've just let her develop and turn into the horse that she is. But but that's her. She's as natural as it gets.
Cool. Here's a question I have for you, and this is something that I've been wanting to ask. Obviously, I've been following your career for a very, very long time, and I'm a big fan. But here's a question that I have. When your horse is trained, and you have trained the horse, or the horse comes to you trained, do you feel you have to keep training and running over the pattern over and over and over and over, or is it more about upkeep, exercise, strength training, things like that? Because I see people that just keep running patterns all the time, over and over and over and over, and I see other people, they're like, they know their job. Now I'm just strength training and keeping them happy, getting their mind on something else, going for a trail ride, things like that. How do you apply your mentality to that?
So that's actually a really great question. I'll tell you what I like to say is I like to ride an inspired horse. Okay, so the best way to keep an inspired animal inspired is to not burn them out and not wear them out. If a horse has reached a high level of competition in this sport, if they reach that supreme high level of this sport, I try to go to the inverse instead of practice them and school them. I try to go the opposite. So I try to get them I want them in the middle place where, do we get to play the game today? Do we get to play the game today? Is this the day? Is this the day? Do I get to go now? Do I get to go now? So I try to flip it around where the mentality is them craving the sport, craving the game, craving the fun, instead of, okay, bro, what do you want? What else do you want? I've been around this thing. Why are we still doing this? You know what I mean? You don't ever want to take away that excitement and that adrenaline rush from your horse, because especially at this level, at this point, you don't want to, that little extra adrenaline might be what gets you across the finish line in front of the other guys. You know what I mean?
I
So
do.
the quickest way to ruin that is to, play basketball for 2 hours before the ball game starts. You know what I mean? Why would we want to do that? So I try to keep them as fresh mentally as possible, and whatever that means for that individual. And some of them they need to be reminded to be a little sharper here, a little sharper there, or whatever. But I try not to ever put them in that position where we are going to practice now, and I'm going to need you to do this like this. I try to, the finish horses, you play a little bit of, it's mental for them too, just like it's mental for us. So I just try to keep a fresh, happy horse where they're craving the competition, instead of, here we go again.
I get it. So, diet, your diet. Do you have a specific diet you eat, or do you eat what you want? Do you eat differently when you have downtime? Do you eat different when you're competing?
So, I have a terrible diet. It only got better when I had children. But so like I try not to eat a lot of fried things. Fried things don't do well for me, and I try to stay away from that. And other than that, I'm pretty free with what I eat. I don't like a lot of processed stuff, but I am a Coca-Cola man. So that is my Achilles heel, is my Coca-Cola. So if I could get away from that, I would probably have a diet that I could be proud of. But other than that, that's what's there. But like I said, it's I kind of stay with the same thing I've always eaten. If I have a really big competition day, just like my girls when we're playing basketball. We always eat pasta the night before we play, and try to carbo load a little bit before the days we're going to have a lot of runs and a lot of work and whatever. And I kind of bleed that over to the horses too. So, because if you run 7, 8, 9, 10 head a day, it'll wear on the body a little. Got to kind of be ready to,
Mhm.
need something to draw on to get it there. But other than that, I'm not. And I mean, I take some supplements. I take lysine, and I take some other, some other things in my diet a little bit. But other than that, not a whole lot different. But I don't just sit and eat either. I'm not a big eater.
Well, keeping the weight where you keep it, you wouldn't be able to eat that badly.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be putting on a ton of weight.
Good
So,
point. Yeah, it's a good point.
and but that's important for people to know that you know there's a lot of factors that go into being an athlete. Everything from the mental side to getting good rest. Are you a good sleeper?
No, not really. But
Mm.
I have learned to sleep. I'm a cowboy sleeper. I have a driver, so I don't ever drive anywhere, and so I can sleep like a cowboy. I can sleep in my RV in my trailer. I can sleep in the truck. That kind of rest. But it's always been a problem for me. I'm not a good sleeper.
Okay. This it's nice and getting to know other parts of you. This is great. Another question. When if you had to pick your favorite horse of all time, what would your favorite horse be? For whatever reason that you put that favorite title on it. Could be competition, could be it was a breeze training it, it just was an emotional connection, whatever.
I get that a lot. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's always a challenge for me to answer that, because after, like I said, after 51 of them winning the title, it's kind of hard to get through. But
Of course.
whenever I had a gelding named What Fame that was the very first dash to fame offspring that won a world championship, and my father bought him. My dad used to watch. At the time he'd have been 26 years old this year, but my dad was watching a broadcast of Los Alamitos race course, and this colt stepped out on the track and raced that night, and my dad owned him before he got back to the saddling paddock, right? And he come down to the barn the next day, and he's like, it's like 2 a.m. here by the time because it's the time change and whatever. So he's like, I bought you a horse. I bought you a horse. And I'll never forget, he said he's buying Unknown Son of First Down Dash, but that horse is out of a really good tiny gay mare, and I think that this horse is going to be great. And so I asked him, I said, well, what did you give for him? And he said, I give $4,000 for him. And I said, you gave $4,000 for him? What if he doesn't make? I can't get $4,000 for him. He's a trail horse. I mean, this is 22 years ago, 23 years ago. And he said, he goes, but what if he's a world champion? And then he was. So I celebrated that horse, and my dad passed after this horse won the world championships, and this horse just passed about 6 months ago, and he's buried out here next to the arena near me. But I kept him that entire time, from the time my dad got him shipped from Los Angeles to the Graves Ranch here in Oklahoma. He stayed here for the next 23 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And when I talk to people, I have people that compete with dogs, and I have people that show horses, people that do Western and dressage and all that. And when I ask them, they'll usually say, it's kind of hard, but they'll usually, after a second, they'll say, well, there was this one.
Yeah.
And I think there was a connection there.
There was always something about this horse from the time he showed up. It was, my dad used to joke, because this horse had he had originated. He was born in Idaho, but he went to Chihuahua. He lived in Chihuahua, Mexico City, and Bo Hill used to joke. She'd say, "What fame's registration papers look like the Del Rio phone book?" Because he'd been owned by so many Mexican families, right, his whole life. But so we picked him up. My dad said, "You're going to have a problem with this colt." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "That horse doesn't speak English. You're not speaking Spanish. He won't even know how to talk to him." So
that's funny.
He showed up with a very old soul when he was 3 years old, and he took right to it, and he never quit till he was done. He was multiple world champion and one of the greatest horses ever threw a leg over, but will probably own my heart forever.
I love it. Are injuries common for professional barrel racers?
So here's the thing. I think that there is a common line of hip problems and knee problems. I see a lot of my friends getting their hips replaced and their knees done, and I think those are probably, other than just accidents and that kind of things that are happening. I think that the sport is kind of tough on the knees and kind of tough on the hips.
Yeah, because I've seen a whole bunch of shin barrel injuries. I've seen a whole bunch of those.
For sure.
Everybody ran in, and they've all got, they're in shorts. You could see the scars right across their knees and their shins,
Right.
Years and years of hitting barrels with their legs.
I've been pretty fortunate with my joints, except for my shoulder. I destroyed my shoulder. I've had multiple surgeries I've had so many surgeries on my shoulder that I quit doing the surgeries. I'm a stem cell patient at the Ozzie Smith Institute in St. Louis. And so I opted to never go under the knife again. And so I have maintained that and rebuilt a career out of stem cell into my shoulder. It's given me a second look at my career, because I was in a bad way about 2013. So
I remember back then.
So it was hard. But it's interesting that you seem to be a gentleman who can appreciate a holistic approach to things, and
absolutely.
Tandy Freeman did my surgery, and he's the best. According to Cowboys, he's the best one in the world, right? And that's the last time somebody cut me.
Well, there's so much information out there. I have a lot of people that go to Mexico for stem cells for knees and hips and shoulders and elbows and wrists and all that kind of stuff. And it's gaining a lot of traction. I mean, especially when you're someone that's had 3 knee surgeries or 2 hip surgeries, and
right.
you're not any better after every one. And so they decide, I'm going to open up my mind and open up my heart and try something else that, I gotta shake it up a little bit. So,
the hardest part for me is the liposuction, the claiming of the cells to do that, for it to spin down to the stem cell. That was really hard for me. And I don't think that's really a procedure made for skinny people.
No,
it was, and they don't, you can't, they can't block you or give you any, they just use ice blocks and just freeze it, because it messes up the cell degradation, right? So that was the hardest part for me of any of the procedures that I've been through, was living through that liposuction was rough. But when I got through that, I had a gentleman that did it was an East Indian doctor, a brilliant man, and he stopped during the procedure, and he kept talking to me, and he was so kind, and he was so tried to be as gentle as he could about that. And he's like, I know this is hurting, and I know, but he said, I just need a little bit more, and we can go there. And he said, if it makes you feel better, he goes, he said, do you mind if I pray with you? And I'm like, absolutely. If you want to pray with me, you can pray with me. It doesn't matter what your religion is. I'm down. You know what I mean? Come on, let's pray. He said, the one thing that I have learned in all of the years is that God has engineered the body, whoever you believe God is, to heal itself. And what we have to do is just sometimes we have to rearrange, what's going on in the body to the specified area that we need to. But he said, we can fix that. He said, I will promise you, as a professional to a patient, I'll give you 70% relief of this pain. And he did. And I didn't think I would. I haven't picked up a 5-gallon bucket of water in 15 years with my left hand. So, and he was right. And he told me the truth, and it worked.
So, two more questions. One, what piece of advice would you give to a young person that is watching all this? They watched you in the All In, they watched NFR, they're watching barrel races, they love it, they got the bug. Any piece of advice that you could give them, something that they could hold on to that might give them a little bit of a better idea of what to expect and the dedication necessary?
Oh, I can give several pointers. The first thing that I would say to anybody is, don't let your professional ambition outweigh your love for the horse that you have. Because as soon as that inverts to a place where that horse is a vehicle, you might as well, go to work for Chrysler or GM and build a car. If the only way that you can, and I think I've survived this industry longer than anybody I know. All the rest of my friends have passed away recently, you know what I mean? All in their 80s and 90s and whatever. Dale Urey passed and almost killed me. So, but, if you are coming at this trying to be famous and trying to be cool and trying to be, a champion in your own head, it takes away from the true challenge, which is to inspire that horse to give you a performance in what you want to do. A horse doesn't wake up every morning going, oh my God, I hope I get to go run around the barrels today. You know what I mean? So if you can inspire that performance, don't lose the love of your horse, don't lose the love of the sport, just in order to try to reach a goal. And I see so many people, especially when they start the kids that are really young and the kids have had a lot of success, because small children have an opportunity for success that older adults don't have. When you take 100 pounds off a horse, that horse can mess up and the child can beat you. It's just life. You know what I mean? It's science. It's physics. So, but what happens is when a lot of those little kids, they achieve all this success before they're 12 or 13 or 14, then there's nowhere to go with that after that, because then they hit puberty, they start growing up, they have to start riding younger horses. Their parents expect that they're going to be trainers now because they've won so much on the finished horses that they bought them. Then it turns into this frustrating mess that just feeds off all sides, and then you get a kid that quits. So I think that it's very important. I've tried to be cautious with my own daughters to not forget to love their horse. You have to love the horse and then love the sport and then try to take it to the next level, instead of, well, I'm this champion and this horse needs to step up and do it. I don't like that, and it never lasts. If you take that approach and expect every horse you ride to go be a winner and to go reach the level of the last horse or better, you will not stay in this business long.
I love that. No, those are very good words of wisdom. Leave everybody with a thought for the day, a personal thought from you.
I think that I'm not going to try to get too deep on everybody here, but I'm going to. I'm grabbing a shovel. You know what I'm saying? I think that there are so many times that we get so caught up in ourselves or social media or influencers, whatever that means. That's a joke to me anyway. Or all of this fluff that we forget about, what's important. The relationships that we build, the people that we meet. It's okay to be thankful that even if your horse goes and hits 3 barrels, it's okay to be thankful that if you met 5 new friends, or you got to learn about someone else's culture or somebody else's life, or or got to go travel to a city that you've never been before, it's okay to leave there being victorious in the experiences that you just gained, because there are thousands of people that would give anything for that experience with the horse completely removed. So if your horse can give you that opportunity to grow in this kind of direction, then your horse is a winner. You can love your horse and you can be proud of your horse for that. And what anybody can leave a pile of trophies behind when they pass, but not everybody can leave behind inspiration or a legacy of support and positivity. And I hope that my students, not just people, but the horses, leave in a positive place, in a place where they're happy, whatever level they are. It's okay to celebrate the wins, even if you don't get a trophy for it.
I love that. Thank you so much. My guest today, Lance Graves. I hope you'll tell all your friends to tune into this podcast. Remember, go to my webpage, drjeffreyburke.com. Tap on the Honest Health logo. It'll take you to Spotify. You can listen to the audio. And also tap on the logo for YouTube. You can go watch the interview on the YouTube channel. I hope you'll go there. And remember, this is kind of all new to me. So if it says like, click, follow, whatever, do it all. And because I want to have you guys and stay close to all of you. Lance, thank you so much for being here today. What a pleasure.
Oh, I certainly enjoyed it, and I really appreciate the questions you asked. They're great. It was a great interview.
Will you come back and see us again?
Oh, I'd love to. I appreciate that.
Oh, and by the way, I enjoyed your rides in Vegas. So nice job.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Have a great day, everyone. God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.